Hello, Professor. My name is Paul, and for our MS-3073 project, Eduardo and myself have been working with professional basketball statistics. And the question that we want to answer is, does defense win NBA championships? Now, this first data set comes from Kaggle.com, and it had 54,000 rows of data, professional basketball player statistics from various leagues around the world from the last 20 years. And you can see that I'm using RStudio for my segment of the analysis. There are 31 variables within this data set. League that the player played in, what season, the stage is regular season, playoffs, etc. Name of the player, the team, and then the games played, the minutes played, the field goal made versus field goal attempted, the three-pointers made versus three-pointers attempted, free throws made versus free throws attempted, turnovers, personal fouls, offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, total rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, points, and then personal information like birth date, height and weight, nationality, and high school. Now, I don't care what high school you went to. Do you care what high school I went to? So there is a lot of data to sift through. So since we're looking for NBA championship defensive data only, the measure of defensive prowess in basketball is how many steals, how many blocks, how many defensive rebounds do you get. So in this first segment of code, we're taking only playoff data from the NBA and compiling defensive summary statistics by team on an annual basis. So the total number of steals, blocks, and defensive rebounds by team, by year. In this second block of code, I'm taking the top 1 and top 3 defensive teams from each year. I join a table of NBA champions from each year. And then I determine from each year if the top defensive teams match that year's champion. And here is a look at one of the resulting tables. This is the top defensive team in the playoffs for the past 20 years. A compilation of team defensive rebounds, steals, blocks, and the grand total, combined with the current year's champion and whether the top team and the current year's champion are a match. And we can see that there are a lot of truths in that column. Let's take a closer look. So the number 1 defensive team in the NBA playoffs has won the NBA championship 14 of the last 20 years. That's 70%. And furthermore, 20 out of the past 20 years, the NBA champion has been in the top 3 for defensive teams in the playoffs. Very strong numbers. Repeating the process with medians instead of total team defense reveals that the NBA champion is in the top 3 for median team defense 15 of the past 20 years. That's 75%. And of those 15, 7 times the champion was also the number 1 in median team defense in the playoffs for that year. All very compelling numbers suggesting that defense does win NBA championships. And now, I'm going to turn it over to Eduardo.
Thank you, Paul. So for my data, I was actually looking at just 2017 real plus minus. I got mine from Kaggle as well. It was just a different study. So instead of looking just at the basic stats of points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks, I wanted to pick one of my favorite advanced stats. For this part of the presentation, I was just trying to compare offense as compared to defense in getting wins, as opposed to defense against defense in championship matchups. Of the 8 variables that we have, I will only be looking at 5 of them. The 3 real plus minus of offense, defense, and overall, as well as all the players, the A column, and how many wins they're able to produce. This will be including the playoffs as well as regular season of 2017. And I have 450 rows, which is the 15 players that play for all 30 teams. So just a little basketball information to get an idea of real plus minus. So real plus minus is a player's impact while he's on the court and how much the team is able to outscore the opposing team. So instead of just looking at one player's production and one player's defensive ability, and on top of defensive ability, what they're able to actually get on the box score, this goes deeper into that, into how their presence actually contributes to overall winning basketball. Offensive real plus minus, strictly just offensive side, how much a team is able to score with the said player on the court. Defensive real plus minus, same thing, just while they're on the court, how much they're able to limit the opposing team's scoring. So for this, I use SPSS. I use the 5 variables, like I said before. I have the wins, and then defensive real plus minus and offensive real plus minus are my 2 other variables linked to the wins. The real plus minus going from lowest to highest, left to right, and using those players to show their real plus minus and see if there's any correlation with winning. On the left side of the real plus minus table, we can see that the players, they are right there with the wins. This is a bad sign since we want the defense to be under, since we want them to limit the amount of points that a team is scoring. As we go on to the right in real plus minus, we see that defense is actually lower, which shows that players are limiting the amounts of points. Players, while they're on the court, their teams are able to limit the amount of points that the other team is scoring. On the right side, we see that it's the offensive, and on the left side of real plus minus, we see that players are just not scoring as much, and because they're having their teams get outscored while they're on the court, we see that teams are usually not winning, which is why they're contributing to less wins, less production while they're on the courts. As we go on to the right, we see that players, they are scoring a lot more. Their teams are winning. They're winning a lot more with their production on the court as well as their team's production, but it's still not there to that point of wins. As we can see with on the left side, we see that wins is affected with defense because it doesn't stay the same. With offense, it follows the same path, but it won't tell us anything. Obviously, if you score more points, you're going to win more games, but we don't know for sure who will win as with defense because those guys are scoring a lot, are preventing other teams from scoring, and that's what's leading to their wins. So in conclusion, what Paul and I were able to find is that defense does in fact win championships. Any team can score more points, and you can say you can just win the game, but when it comes down to it, the team that limits the other team in scoring is going to be the team to win it all. Thank you.